Well, I'm one step closer to getting this thing operating. I got new tires. And these are surprisingly cheap. They're like $12, $13 a piece, so they're not bad. And they are the same size that's on there, just a slight different in that those are ribbed, and I chose to get the knobbed ones. I could have went either way, and these are a tubeless tire. Well, I'm putting tubes in them. I'm not going to be running them tubeless. The tubes on these are still good, still holding air, although like this one here actually has the tube bulging out of the tire. She's completely shot. But the tube should be good. And they appear to be the same height. Well, they're the exact same size, but I actually could have used an even higher profile, but I think they'll work for what they need to do. There's still a few nagging questions on this thing. I got new belts, and they work on the whole motor pivots on a belt tensioner. It drops down, and that tightens the belt up. Well, I got to work out a good compromise, because even when she pivoted all the way, there's still going to be a little drag on it when you go to turn that motor over. Belt tighteners never really completely release. So we'll see. It might take a little adjustment, but you got to loosen 4 bolts on the motor to slide it. It slides on that plate that goes up and down. And I think when I pivot this blade down, I think I'm going to actually have to slide the motor forward, because that's going to take up, a considerable amount of belt. So that's a little confusing. In a down position, I'd have to slide it forward, but in a way, it makes sense, because this drive mechanism that runs against the wheels, like say now it's about an inch away from the wheels. Well, if I have to slide the motor forward to take up the belt, that should bring me up against the wheel. I'm sure they had this all schemed out. I might have to play around and get a different length of belt for the drive, but I wanted to get all this squared away before I go figuring out my belt length. I did get the new muffler on, so now I just got to change tires. But like I say, I'll go with the tubes in the tires. Tubeless tires, they're cheap because they're a pretty standard wheelbarrow tire this size. They're 480, 400, 8. I'm sure it's the same thing my regular wheelbarrow uses. But the tubeless aspect, that's one of the stupidest things they ever did. On like your lawnmowers and stuff like that, they put tubeless tires on them. They're always flat. You always end up having to put tubes in them. I got a lawnmower sitting over there with 2 flat tires now. They leak down. They're good for about 2 days, then they leak down. Then they pop off the bead, because there isn't really much of a bead holding them. But that's, I don't know, it was a stupid idea that they did. It saves a couple bucks in the assembly of the thing. And in fact, it's gotten to be the tubes for this kind of a tire will end up costing almost as much as the tire. Well, tractor tires too, like the big rear tractor tires, I think tubes are like 70 bucks. So that's why I'm glad I'm able to salvage these 2 tubes, so I don't have to buy more tubes. But that's a horrible racket. I'm not fond of tubeless tires. I like to see a tube in a tire. in the long run, you're much better off with tubes. But this one, the tire is actually in fair shape. You know, it isn't rotted out like the other one, so I'll hang on to that in case I ever need one for the wheelbarrow. I could slap that right on. And it's not special, just the cutter key holds them in there, so I'll pop them off. And there's some questions on this mechanism though, like I see like on the axle now, they've got two sets of holes for the height, which wouldn't make much sense. You know, I'm sure this is a factory machine, but it's a little confusing. You know, like normally when I use it in this position for a buzzsaw, built a platform, rolled the machine on it, and then I have a pivoting rock and cradle that I use that is held on with two clamps, regular exhaust clamps. And that works, but you got to get it up, you know, at least a foot. But in looking at this thing, I see right here, there are all kinds of marks like there were set screws holding something on. I don't know what that would have been for. You know, because I can't see that you could run any kind of a guard and still be effective, you know. It would be safer, maybe, but not effective. There is a little tab here that's broke off that I'm pretty sure had a small guard that went over to cover these belts, not to protect you from getting your fingers in the belts, but to keep like bark and stuff from getting in the belts, I'm sure, to keep sticks, you know, from falling in there. I noticed there's a dent in the gas tank, and I'm sure that was from somebody running it in a horizontal position, hit a tree, you know, cut a tree down and dropped it right on the machine. Now I think, you know, it's got this square lug here with a hole in it. I suspect that they had a handle, like say 4 feet long, that pinned in here so that you could, one guy would run it from that end and one guy would run it from this end. It'd be much more controllable from this end. You know, I suspect that's what it was. But another confusing thing is, okay, you got the two drive pulleys here. You got 3 pulleys on the motor. One of them is for the drive down there, for the wheels. But then, oddly enough, there's a third little pulley on here that doesn't line up with anything. I got no idea what that's for. You know, it's a bit of a mystery. Well, the whole thing is kind of a mystery, but it's the only one I've seen, except for the one that was in that film. And that wasn't this same model. I'd love to know, you know, I can never find a manufacturing name on it, but I'd like to find out some history on this thing, or on this design. You know, I'm sure they had some kind of manual with them at one time, but everybody I talked to, nobody's ever seen anything like this, so it doesn't get me anywhere. But I don't know what this would have been for. I just can't imagine what you want to be driving off of this. Well, it's a puzzler, but I can make it work, you know, to use it like I use it. But it would be interesting to know how it was actually used. You know, I did watch that film that is on YouTube on one of these, that old one, which is how I know that what it was for. It was cutting pulpwood. But that was a simpler machine than this. This has got a few more adjustments to her. But the motor runs good. Now I got belts for it. So at least I can set it up so I can use it like I used it. But I would like to get it rigged up so that I can actually try cutting down a tree with it. Not that I want to make a habit of this, but I'd like to try it. But these mysteries on this stuff, you know, I don't know what's going on there. But the drive belts were cheap. It's just a trick of measuring to get the right size, and then I wanted to make sure I wasn't running out of adjustment right away, but I think I lucked out. I think I got where I want to be. But it would be interesting to know more about these, or how they were used. You know, I'm sure I got it in Minnesota someplace, so I would think there would have been more of these at one time. But there was probably not a big period of time from going from hand saws to chainsaws, and this thing fell in between, you know. But I imagine someplace there's got to be some kind of a logging and history for the pulpwood industry. I should check if I'm ever up. Like Cloquet, Minnesota, is a big pulpwood place there. I would think there'd be some museum that have something like that there.